Hey guys, welcome back to Communist Radio. This week we have a little bit of a different podcast. So, as comrades may have seen, over the month of March, we've been running in multiple different student union election campaigns. In Leeds, we were actually barred from running in the student union election in a political attack. But at Lancaster University, at Sheffield University, and at Cardiff University, we have run for student union president in all of these places. And this has been a really incredible month for us to talk to radicalized young people in these universities about what is bothering them, how they want to fight against the crisis of capitalism, the horrors of being a young person under capitalism today. And I think, yeah, we've learned a huge amount as the Revolutionary Communist Party about what young people are thinking, but also about these campaigns and this kind of political campaigning, and how incredible it can be to show people the potential of communist ideas out there. Today we have the candidates with us who ran in all three of these places. We have Adam from Lancaster University, Anton from Sheffield University, and Alice from Cardiff University. And we're going to talk a little bit about why they ran, the program that they ran on, and the experiences that they had. And in all three places where we were able to run, we came in third and we got around 10% of the vote. So I think in Lancaster and Sheffield, we got like somewhere around 400 votes. And in Cardiff, we got nearly 1,000 votes. And in Cardiff as well, we'll talk more about it later, but we went massively viral on social media. Sharon Osbourne even had some choice words to say about Alice. I think it's really like made a splash, this campaign. We've got the comrades here who ran in these election campaigns, and yeah, we're just going to talk about the experiences that they've had and why they ran and what that's been like. So I want to start a bit on this question of like generally what is happening on campus right now and what it's like to be a student. I think you guys are all students already. I think you're all in your third year, and you've experienced a lot of the horrors of capitalism in your university life. And I'm really interested to hear about kind of those experiences and what it is that has led you to want to run as a communist candidate in the student union elections. And I think one thing that I know is like especially radicalizing young people and especially radicalizing students. And it came up a lot in Sheffield. So maybe Anton, you can talk a little bit about it. Is Palestine this genocide that has been ongoing for the last 18 months. That obviously the ceasefire has now been broken, it does seem like this is something that has massively radicalized everyone, but especially young people and especially students. I heard you had some experiences of that, Anton, in Sheffield. So yeah, it'd be great for you to tell us about them.
Uh, yeah. Like talking to students, it kind of was such a great way to connect with them, because everyone on the campus of university, or everyone we seemed to meet, had something to say about Palestine. Like, we're angry about what was going on. And with Sheffield specifically, we take so much money from arms companies. I think it's something like 72 million has been taken. It's sort of like a bribe to like push our students into these weapon manufacturing jobs and have cheap research in the university. And students don't want to do this. Like, no one really wants to go into a weapons manufacturing job, and it has really radicalized the students here. And also just seeing like this recent breaking of the ceasefire and this like seeing what's going on, it's really like radicalizing the youth. And that's been like our stance on that, and talking to students about this has connected with them so well. And throughout the campaign, it's been really successful, and it's insane what's going on at Sheffield. Really, like we've even given like a Bowen president an honorary degree, because yeah, like this is the state of like what's going on at this university, and this complicity with the genocide. And students are angry at this. They see it everywhere. They even see it at like in our governments, and this complicit. I can't say the word. But yeah, this is kind of why I ran, to give a voice to these students who are angry because no one is talking about it, and try and offer an actual way to fight back. But yeah. Mm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about this. Like, why are all of these universities so complicit in the genocide in Israel? You mentioned like this Boeing guy being given an honorary an honorary scholarship or whatever to the university. Yeah, why has that happened? Does anybody have any thoughts about the university's complicity in this?
Yeah, I guess it stems from like this lack of state funding. So like the universities used to be funded by the state, but then yeah, with the crisis of capitalism, the austerity in society, and like the debt weighing down on the state and the government, they've had to be open, like they've had to open these areas up into for private investment. Hence, we see arms companies enter onto the campus, and universities have to be run like a business. But yeah, this is the state of it. This is the reason, the root cause, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Anton. I think that's completely correct. And I think also what this brings up is a bit of a question about our government. You mentioned, it's not just the university management and the bosses that are complicit in this, but this is also connected with the crisis of British capitalism and what Sir Keir Starmer is doing in 10 Downing Street. And I imagine that not just on the issue of Palestine, but in general, seeing the Labour government come to power and obviously continue all of the same policies that the Tory government had in place, that's also must be radicalising a certain layer of students. Alice, have you got any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think everyone, including students, was quite shocked at quite how bad the Labour government has been so far. I think the attacks on disability benefits recently as well were quite shocking for everyone to see. So it's not only the complicity in genocide, but the cuts to the NHS. And we also know that they're cutting public funding for universities as well continuously. So I think all of it kind of, yeah, accumulates as just a lot of anger against the government. And I think students don't have any faith in the government at all to do anything in their interests. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess we've been writing and talking a lot about how this failure from these liberals and the establishment, the capitalist establishment, has opened up the way for people like Donald Trump and Nigel Farage and this sort of right-wing populism that has come about in recent period. And I think that this is also something that is impacting the mentality of students to quite a high degree. They're seeing all of this, anti-immigration rhetoric coming out, it's anti-woman rhetoric and so on. And I think they're confused about the political situation. They're confused about how, in 2025 you could have these sort of ideas being so popular. Yeah, Adam, do you have any thoughts about, why that is happening and the way that it's impacting students? Is this having an impact on the political mentality of students?
Yeah, I think this the rise of the far right is incredibly interesting. You saw like it was a massive shock last summer when you had those riots. I think like everyone, you felt it as soon as we came out to university. That was a massive talking point as well. And it's fundamentally because the crisis of capitalism offers no solution for a large layer of people, working people. And there's no one on the left. Like, who is there? We have a so-called Labour government in power that is offering no way for working people, as we talked about. And yeah, so people are turning towards the right just for any change. People like Farage, like Trump in particular, they dress themselves as anti-establishment. They dress themselves in kind of fighting talk. I mean, Trump even admitted he stole like his kind of rhetoric from Bernie Sanders, right? There's no wonder that people are like going towards these kind of things. When what's the alternative? You have milquetoast Starmer, who is just acting out awful austerity on the working class.
Yeah, and I think that this sort of farcical nature of politics is really also expressed in student politics. And we can come back onto that a little bit later about the experiences that you guys had. But yeah, I think these two things are very much tied together. But I know there's also like these are sort of the big political questions that are on the minds of students that young people are thinking about constantly. But there are also day-to-day like life struggles, right, that people are experiencing, that university students are experiencing because of the crisis of capitalism. And I'd be interested for us to talk a little bit more about them. Obviously, one of the things I think that is radicalizing people and causing all of this horror at the crisis of capitalism is the housing crisis. This obviously extends well beyond students, but I think is especially especially prevalent for students. Anton, do you have any any thoughts about the way that housing, the way that university accommodation is treated at the moment, how the crisis of capitalism has affected it, and how it's impacting students?
Yeah, I don't know anyone who hasn't had to deal with mold or some kind of issue in their house or a weird landlord. And I know most students, their loans don't even cover the rent they have to pay. They're being forced into other jobs. They're being forced to work during their degree, work during the summer just to survive. And especially at universities, like the accommodation is being run to exploit students. Like it's insane. Like universities should be here to educate the future of like our society. They should be there to help students and like build them into educators and into like their life, right? And their accommodation is seen as a way to generate profit. And again, it stems from this like lack of state funding, then the university having to be run like a business. And so we see so much money being generated from students in a way of income, in a way of like generating from rent. But yeah, it's insane. And I think it demonstrates this anger in society because loads of people, everyone is dealing with this. Everyone's dealing with the rise in rent. And the students especially. But they really feel like it's such a normal thing because there's no way to fight back. There's such a void. You talk about like void on the left, and it's insane, and people just accept it. But like deep down, there is this anger about it, and it's affecting everyone.
Yeah, the university accommodation that I lived in when I was at university in Manchester is now well known for every single year. It has a silverfish outbreak. It has some sort of like sewage flooding, and it's like nearly £1,000 or something a month. Like it's absolutely extortionate prices to live in these like slums essentially. And I think the landlords, especially, they prey on the naivety of students, right? And the fact that they can really just price gouge with these students, and this seems to be happening across the board, and it's definitely something that is impacting people's people's health and well-being, people's mental health. Obviously, there's a huge mental health crisis amongst students, but I think also is radicalizing them and making them angry at the state of capitalism. And you said, Anton, that obviously students, they go to university to learn, right? They go to university to be educated, and then they end up in these horrible living conditions. But they also seem to end up with very little education, and that education is being cut and cut and cut as the crisis of capitalism worsens, and as the marketization of education deepens. Alice, obviously, I know in Cardiff there has been huge cuts that have radicalized the student population massively. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so in Cardiff, there have been 400 job cuts, but also massive course closures. Like nursing is, meant to be completely scrapped, and music and like languages as well. And it's kind of affecting the whole university because the courses that aren't getting cut are getting merged together. So in every single student will have lecturers that they know who have received redundancy letters, and the lecturers are talking to the students about it, and everyone is really angry about it. But I think at the moment, one big issue is that people don't really know what they can do about it. And also, you're talking about mental health. Something that was quite funny was when we had the town halls with Wendy Lana, who's our vice chancellor. They were saying that you need to be very, very mindful of like her mental health and management's mental health, and be nice in the town halls. Whilst at the same time, you have all of these lecturers who might not have a job soon, and it's like, what about their mental health, or the students whose courses are being closed, or the impact on the NHS in Wales? Like, you think that's not more important for mental health? But I think it's been massively radicalizing, to the student body as a whole, definitely.
Yeah, the poor mental health of those earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year while we're living in mouldy accommodation. It's completely ridiculous. I think obviously also the other kind of reason that people go to university, as well as to learn, is also to get out into the real world, right, and to socialize and experience social life, make new friends, become adults. And I feel like this also is being kind of chipped away at because of this marketization, because of all the private companies that exist on campus that are running purely for a profit. Adam, I know in Lancaster, like loads of the student bars are shutting, and that's going to really impact student life. What's going on there?
Yeah, so Lancaster has like a collegiate system. There's 9 colleges, and each college has a bar, and that's like a big selling point for the university. But whilst I've been at university, a third of all of the bars have closed. They just don't really exist anymore, other than just a space you can walk into. And yeah, it's shocking actually, and it's actually tied to mental health, I think, because there are these like confession pages you see where students talk about how lonely they are. And of course they're lonely. They're shutting down all the social spaces, all the big events that the university used to hold, are being cut. Like they don't hold them anymore. Societies are struggling over like scraps for funding and are often like unlikely to find a new exec to continue next year. Like the entire student culture in Lancaster and frankly across the UK is collapsing, and that is like a massive issue. It may seem like a secondary thing compared to like housing or the job cuts, but really is a massive problem for students.
Yeah, I don't think it is a secondary thing at all. And I think you think about these young 18-year-olds coming to university, and they're seeing all of this crisis nationally and internationally. They're seeing the genocide in Palestine. They're seeing the Labour government do nothing to change the 14 years of Tory austerity. They're seeing the rise of the right. And then they come to university, and which is meant to be this period of like learning and discovering new ideas and learning who you are as a person. And you are living in horrible accommodation. Your course is being shut down, or you're in massive lecture halls, and you're also not even able to make friends and socialize. Right? It's completely cuts away at all of the fabric of what student life is supposed to be about. And I guess, yeah, that is like what is radicalizing students. And also, I imagine what radicalized the three of you and what made you want to run in these elections and want to try and fight back against the system and fight back against all of these horrors of capitalism. And I think one other thing that is worth us talking about in this is the sort of the student unions, right? The student unions are supposed to be fighting bodies, right? They're supposed to represent the interests of workers. And I remember when I was at university, the student unions had become just just places for like the bar to exist, or just places for a few societies to meet and this kind of thing. They didn't really have any fighting spirit, any political spirit within them. But it feels even worse now. It feels like even more farcical that these things are meant to represent students. I think all of you, and we can come back to this more later, but all of you like saw a bit of this SU careerism. But going into the campaign, like, did you have what is the mood like towards the student union? Do people see it as something that represents their interests? Are they like, do they go to the student union to help them fight back against these horrors? Or is it as I imagine, like people just don't even consider it anymore?
Yeah, really, I don't think anyone cares at all, or anyone sees this SU as a tool that we can use as students. I was at the hustings or the debate night, and there were no students in the room. There was only candidates, and it's so crystal clear to see that this is not a thing that students look to as a tool. And even all these candidates, they're just here to further their career. I on the website when I was like sending in my application, it was saying like, why is it good to run? Like, why are you running? And it said that it'd be so good on your CV, and that we've had previous winners become MPs and politicians and all this, and it's so crystal clear. And I think Wes Streetings is such a good example of this, because he was a Cambridge SU president, and he ran on like leftist policies, and like he was the very sensible choice, I guess, that was like, yeah, we should vote for him. He can do these little bits of change. And he went on to become the president of the NUS, and then a Labour MP, and now he's currently the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, and he is the person slashing the NHS. Like, it's so crystal clear to see that these people want this kind of path. They want to exist in this political sphere. And it's reflected in their politics, where they refuse to break with the system that is causing these things that are affecting students. And really, like, Labour and these parties love to pick these people up because they sell their soul to the system, and they can talk to the youth. So it's so clear to see, and this angers students. Like, this is why no one turns out. We had like a 20% turnout rate to the election because no one sees this as an actual like method of fight back or a political thing. It's just these people who want to push their career forward, and yeah, I think everyone sees it. But
Yeah, I think that is completely true. But obviously, you guys were different, and you guys ran on a very different kind of program. I don't think any of you were looking for careers in politics. I'm not sure what kind of safe political careers you could get by running as a communist candidate in the elections. But let's talk a little bit more about the kind of programs that you ran on. I mean, I know you all had separate and slightly different programs, but looking at the three of them, I felt like it kind of broke down into four different sort of general ideas. And the first one was kicking capitalism off campus. We've spoken a little bit about the marketization, about the fact that you've got all these private companies on campus and how that impacts things. But yeah, Adam, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think this was a demand that got a lot of people talking. I think Lancaster University is one of the busiest Gregs in the country, and people are like, "Oh, you wanna get rid of Gregs or whatever." No, we could nationalize that and bring it under control, and that people love that. But more like seriously, things like the housing as well, bringing that in house. All the bars that were closed, yeah, just bring that in house, even under student control. And you would see that it would be run much better, and the profits instead of being extracted and brought out to private companies could be kept and reinvested into the university, which is like obviously when you talk to students and you put it that way, like obviously that should be the way forward. It seems like a no-brainer, but there's a reason it doesn't happen, and that is like the effectively the marketization of education. That is run for profit and not for the quality of education for the students.
Yeah, definitely. And students are paying so much to be at university, right? They're paying thousands of pounds in student fees. They're also obviously getting a maintenance loan, which they then have to pay back. And where's that maintenance loan going, right? It's going to these private landlords. It's going to the privately owned bars. It's going to the owner of Greg's, whatever else. Like it's all going into the pockets of these capitalists, and then it's having to be paid back by young workers who come into the workforce already with 50, 60, 70,000 pound worth of debt, who then have to with interest on top of it, right? That debt feels like it never ever goes down, and you're just constantly trying to pay this back to the same private companies that you are then forced to work for, and that you're then being exploited by as an adult. And then on top of that, you have students working as well, right? And working for these companies while they're in university. So it's just from every angle, they're being exploited and squeezed by the ruling class and by these big capitalist companies. And yeah, one thing that the next like kind of demand that we had within all of our programs was this question of opening the books and saying no to cuts. And I think this is a really interesting demand off the back of that kind of point of all of the money being there, being in the pockets of these big businesses. So yeah, Alice, do you want to explain a little bit more of what we mean by opening the books and saying no to cuts?
Yeah, I think it came about especially, yeah, because we have all of the cuts going on, and management are kind of saying there's nothing we can do about it. We're having to make tough decisions and all of this sort of stuff. Whilst at the same time in Cardiff, they're opening up like a campus in Kazakhstan. So it's kind of there are a few questions there of like where's the money actually going? And we're saying, yeah, that all of the workers and students should be able to see the complete finances of the university. And through that, they would understand that the university is being run completely in the interests of management. And the interests of management are completely opposed to the interests of students and workers. So through seeing this mismanagement of finances, like the idea of the demand is that students and workers would want to take the finances into their own hands because they should be the ones who are in control of that essentially. um yeah
Yeah, and like we were talking about before, this all of this management makes a massive amount in wages and salaries, right? And then they're saying, oh, we have to put all of these cuts through, and we're saying, show us the books, right? Show us what money is actually there, and then we can discuss what needs to be done with it, instead of you guys telling us what has to be done by it and dictating from that position of senior management. And another thing that obviously the marketization of education has done that we were talking about before is like tying itself to imperialism and tying itself to often quite brutal and bloody imperialism, like what's happening in Palestine at the moment. Yeah, Anton, you mentioned all of the university connections with Israel and with the genocide that's happening. So what was our program for fighting that? What do we think needs to be done by the student union to fight against these ties with imperialism?
Yeah, so we ran on a program of like kicking arms companies off campus or kicking imperialism out of education. And yeah, it's quite a simple thing. Like, right, every student is angry about this. We talked about this layer of anger, but the SU is silent on it. I think the current SU president said she's fighting like the good fight, but it's behind closed doors and just in discussion with management. And we know this will do nothing. Like, we understand that this is like a fundamental part of how universities are run, and so like asking nicely or signing petitions just isn't enough, or like appealing to morality. So yeah, this kicking arms companies had to be on our like our way forward, because like this is what's necessary, and like building a movement, like mobilizing students, because there is wealth in society. Like, we can fund education and universities through the state funding, right? There is that option. But yeah, the only way to do this is to build a wider struggle, and this is what the SU has to do, and it is really the only way to fight back in this sense. But yeah.
Yeah, and Alice, before you mentioned the fact that students and workers should be able to like look at the finances and plan them themselves, and I think this question kind of ties into everything we've been discussing, right? One of our demands everywhere was democratic workers and students' control of the universities. What do we mean by that, and how does it connect to everything, like all the other demands that we've just been discussing?
Yeah, well, I think like first it connects really well to what Anton was just saying about how we need to build like a mass movement, or a movement that goes beyond just one single university, and essentially like through a fight immediately against the cuts and the demand to open the books, we would essentially through that continue to build a movement where we would say actually the only way to stop the cuts for good and to keep the university in the interest of students and workers would be to have an elected body of students and workers that represent the whole university, and they should be the ones running it, because as we've been saying before, management completely oppose the interest of the students and workers, and they'll welcome in all of these businesses all at I don't know, the risk at the detriment to students and the lecturers at the university. So it would be through a mass movement that links up the whole of the higher education sector and beyond, essentially. And through that struggle, we would get democratic control for students and workers at the universities.
Yeah, because the role that the management play in these universities is not a useful or necessary role. It is a role of defending and supporting capitalism on campus, right? That's why they're paid these massive wages that no one will ever cut, because they play that very important role of connecting capitalism to campus. Whereas obviously what we're saying is we don't want capitalism on campus, and therefore we have to get rid of this layer of managers, this layer of chancellors and vice chancellors, and instead we need the students and the workers who are running the university, who are living in the university, who are impacted by every aspect of the university. They need to be the people who are making the decisions about university life, where the money is spent, where the resources go, what kind of courses need more development, whether there needs to be more social life, all of these kind of questions. They can only be genuinely decided in a useful way by people who are actually living and working in the university, and people who don't have an interest in pulling capitalist companies onto campus. Okay, so obviously we've talked now about the program that we ran on and the political content of what students are thinking about. I want to hear a little bit more about what it was actually like in the campaign itself. You guys have all run these incredible campaigns now. And yeah, I'd be really interested to hear like what was the response like from students and what kind of experiences, like this is the first time any of you have ran for any sort of position in the student unions. What has it been like? Let's start, I think, with this question of what the mood from students is like. We've obviously talked a lot about the political content of what students are thinking about, but what is like how was the campaign received in all three of these places? Let's start with Lancaster. How was the campaign received there?
I think it was received incredibly well. It was incredibly exciting just going to and speaking to people. It'd be really interesting because you start to speak to someone and you say, "Oh, we're in the SU election or whatever." They won't be that interested, but like with nearly every single person, there'd be at least one thing they were incredibly angry about. And it would be different for different people, but you could nearly always find something to find common ground. And from that, you would just see that, yeah, basically everyone is angry about some aspect of student life being destroyed by capitalism.
Yeah, I think this. I know we ran in Cardiff on this idea of like we're not student politicians, we're revolutionaries, which obviously came from the general election campaign that we ran with Fiona Lally, where we said we're not politicians, we're revolutionaries. And what you were saying, Adam, of like, yeah, people kind of just started with like, oh, like a student union election, I don't care kind of thing, and then moved on. Like, it feels like that slogan really got through to people. Yeah, Alice, how did that slogan work for you guys in Cardiff? And yeah, in general, what was the mood towards the campaign like?
Yeah, I think it went down really well, the slogan in general, because we'd talk to people and immediately they'd be like, oh, student union elections, whatever, we don't really care. But by saying like, yeah, we're revolutionaries, not student politicians, and like we're aiming sorry, yeah, we're aiming for something much bigger than just a seat in the student union. And yeah, I think the slogan became kind of more and more true throughout the campaign when we saw kind of the response from the other candidates and that sort of thing going on. I mean, we had a guy running openly as a conservative, and immediately when we put our campaign material out, he made a post against us in defense of democracy, commented on all of our stuff saying, oh, we're going to debate you and take you down. And then throughout the whole week, he was running away from me and avoiding me. And eventually one of our comrades like managed to catch up with him, started asking him questions, and he tried to block us from the election by going to the student union and saying he was harassed, which was just entirely untrue. And then we had all of the other candidates signing an open letter in defense of democracy against our campaign, against the harassment that he apparently received. It was all just, yeah, very ridiculous. We also had candidates when we'd say we're like I'm a revolutionary, not a student politician, and someone would say, oh, I don't like that, the next candidate would say, no, I'm a student politician, you should vote for me, and like that sort of thing. So we kind of politicized, yeah, the whole elections, definitely. And the support, I think, was, yeah, massive, like throughout the campaign and after. We've had people like coming up to me saying that they were following it really closely and all of their friends were talking about it. And there was kind of this sense that everyone in the university, like either positively or negatively, was talking about like the communist running. So that was great. And even like staff as well. We're incredibly supportive. But yeah.
Yeah, this point about harassment is so ridiculous. You know, the harassment of a first year student with a camera and some ideas, right? Like this is enough to take down the conservative candidate, the candidate representing the party of British capitalism. You know, this historic party, and they can't even stand a first year student challenging them and asking them a few questions about the crisis of capitalism. But yeah, it sounds like you guys had a really fantastic response from the elections, and obviously that's represented in the votes that you guys got. Anton, what was it like for you? What was the response on campus, and yeah, what were the other like what was the response from the student body, but also from the other candidates?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what Alice and Adam have been saying. Like, there's this layer of apathy when it comes to talking about the SU elections and all this. And it's like breaking that down and showing that we're so much more than that, and like we're fighting for something else, and like something bigger than the SU election. And like I remember just like walking down when I was trying to talk to people, just like no one would look at me. They'd be like, I don't care about the SU election. I'd just be like listing off all these things that like the rise in rents, rise in tuition fees, the cuts, the arms companies, and like one of them would catch them, and that would be enough to like show them our ideas and like spread the. And yeah, I like to think that like almost everyone on campus knew about the communist running because of all the stuff we were doing. But yeah, like Alice was saying that they were proud to be politicians. I think that's hilarious. Like that's insane, right? And that was kind of how it was in Sheffield, like a total clown show. You saw the clowns that were running and like the joke candidates, and it was totally made out to be apolitical. Like all of them made out that they were strong fighters for democracy, but when we went and tried to debate them, they'd run away, and they'd call us, yeah, like Alice was saying, they that we were like harassing them and all these things, and like they were literally people running an election, putting their ideas forward. We tried to debate their ideas, and it would turn like it was insane. It was a complete joke, to be honest. And yeah, I think all students knew that, and hence it showed in this apathy. But yeah, it was very rewarding, I guess, to see that people are angry, and it goes even further than these elections. Like people in society are angry, but they see no way forward. And yeah, just talking to anyone long enough, you find something they're angry about, whether it's about the university or the system or capitalism. And yeah,
Yeah, on this point about democracy and people saying that we're not taking democracy seriously, I mean, what is less democratic for the students than having a literal clown show, right? Like there was literally somebody running dressed as a clown in Sheffield as your only choice of representative, with all of these like magnitude of problems that we've been discussing that students are facing. You know, no wonder that people have no respect for student politics and no respect for politics in general. I think it goes so much wider than just student politics. Adam, did you have any experiences with anyone or any other candidates in Lancaster? What did the other candidates think about the campaign?
Yeah, in Lancaster it was a bit different actually. So there were only four candidates for president, and one of them like just hated us so much, couldn't stand the sight of us. Was just like throwing epitaphs at us at any point they could. But the other two were kind of like trying to warm up to us, right? It's interesting because you have this range of like basically blatant bureaucrats who just want to be student politicians, and some people who are kind of more honest and earnest. But like even they fundamentally refuse to break with the management. They see the way forward is through like backroom deals, basically just talking to management. And so we basically incompatible at that point.
Interesting. Yeah, also, I think in all places, but especially in Cardiff, the campaign reached quite like beyond just the immediate campus. And I think, as I mentioned at the start, in Cardiff, you had a huge social media presence with, I think it was your first campaign announcement video, Alice, went viral, and you had Sharon Osbourne called you a silly child, which is a good claim to fame to hold on to, I think. But yeah, do you want to tell us a bit more about that, Alice? What was that social media impact like?
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, we didn't obviously expect any of the videos to go viral, but the first one ended up also on like Sky News Australia. And yeah, obviously we had thousands, like tens of thousands of right-wing comments kind of across all of the videos, yeah, throughout. So we kind of had to make a social media campaign and like discussing with the comrades of like, okay, how can we get like another video out to kind of respond to all of the attacks while still putting our program forward. And at the start, we weren't sure whether like the video going viral was going to actually have any impact at Cardiff University on the campus. But we quickly found out that it did, and like lots of students came up to me even like the week before the election saying that they recognized me from the video. And even if it wasn't all positive, I think every single person I spoke to agreed with at least like part of the program, which was, yeah, was really fantastic. And we also had people who like weren't students just around Cardiff saying that they'd seen it online, and yeah, they found it all, yeah, very exciting. And still even now it's like every minute there's like more comments, but it's been really good because we've got yeah, support from students and different groups like all over the world, like replying saying they feel inspired by the campaign. So yeah, it's overall just been, yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, which is a huge part of why we did it, right? To show that something alternative is out there, that there is something different that you can do. You don't have to just avoid these bureaucratic elections. You can actually fight for something real. Another way that we got our names out there and talked about our program was through lecture shout outs, going into lectures and talking to the students about our program and what we were fighting for, which gave us a really good echo, I've heard, in all universities. Lots of people talking to us and being really inspired by our program. I also heard in Cardiff that we had people standing up in the canteen and talking about the program and getting taken away by security, brand new comrades. So yeah, can we talk a little bit more about that? What were those lecture shout outs like, and what was the response from students and lecturers? Anton, what was it like in Sheffield?
Yeah, I mean, I think like generally a very good response. It showed us apart from a lot of the candidates because I don't think anyone was being as bold in Sheffield as giving lecture shout outs. And kind of showed that we thought our ideas were true. We were putting ourselves out there. And like, yeah, it was a great response. Like people would initially be like, I don't care, SU elections. And we'd show that like we are trying to fight, like lead an actual fight forward instead of what it naturally is. And yeah, we had this video that blew up actually of one of the lecturers taking us out of the lecture. He was like, stop, you need to get out, as soon as we mentioned arms companies, which it's quite funny. It kind of shows where we're at. And I guess it's important to know that like the lecturer isn't the enemy. Like the only person who can really free the university are the lecturers and the workers there. And so winning them over and understanding that the reason he did that was because he's trying to feed his family, and like we need to win them over to our fight. And yeah, this really showed like the strength of our lecture shouts, I guess, and understanding. But, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Adam, what about in Lancaster?
Yeah, the lecture shout outs were incredible. I did so many. The first one I did was in a law lecture on a Monday morning at like 9 a.m. And I unsurprisingly did not get the best reception there. But basically, all of them, it was interesting. You just get like a round of applause at the end. And like you'd speak to people afterwards. And yeah, one of the things I thought was incredibly funny as well is some of the other candidates did do lecture shout outs in Lancaster. And sometimes they would do them in the same lecture we did it. And like they stopped, like we would go first, right? And you would see them kind of squirm because they would realize, oh, like I don't know if I could actually like talk like this, right? And it was great for the comrades as well. A lot of the comrades in Lancaster, it was their first time doing anything like this, like speaking in front of people, and they really came out of their shell. It was excellent.
Amazing, yeah, building little Bolsheviks in all of the universities. Yeah, Alice, tell us a little bit more about the lecture shout-outs in Cardiff and the canteen shout-outs as well.
Yeah, so we had like immediately like 25 slots for lecture shout outs were given to us because we sent out mass emails, and we had to get a rota where all of the new like student comrades, one of them who'd only been in a week, were essentially like, okay, no one else can do it, we're all busy, you need to go and do it. And we had people speaking in front of hundreds of students who'd never even done like a lead off before, like spoken in front of a big group of people before. And yeah, it was incredible for them, especially with like all of the like strike stuff coming up and thinking about what will our role be in the future. Like we all need to be able to speak in front of people and explain our ideas. But yeah, and then we had some departments cancel lecture shout outs or say that none of the lecturers are allowed to let us speak after our first day of putting on a load of lecture shout outs. But the actual lecturers kind of would turn a blind eye, a lot of them, and say, okay, I've got this email, but I'm going to pretend I haven't seen it yet, and still let us speak in front of their classes. And a lot of the lecturers would discuss with us after, and like very, yeah, happy to hear about everything that we were doing. And then with the canteens as well, that was kind of a response to a lot of the lecture shout outs being blocked. So we just had students go into a canteen and start speaking without like a megaphone or anything. And that, yeah, was, I don't know, it was very exciting, and everyone else would run around with leaflets. And it was the new comrade who'd only been here a week who got like taken out by security, but he wasn't fazed by it at all. So yeah, the energy was just, yeah, fantastic.
Amazing. And I heard, Alice, that you were even invited to speak in a lecture about the Russian Revolution. And I was told that the lecturer was, trying to tie Lenin to Stalin and making political points that are completely wrong, and that you just went in and said, everything that you've been taught is incorrect, and I'm here to tell you the truth about this revolution, which is absolutely amazing. And I think, yeah, what you said about the fact that this is training people ready for the strike waves that's coming up and this kind of thing. I mean, this is why we're doing this. It's a big part of why we're doing this, because through this process, we are training all of these young revolutionaries to be able to win over a room of people to revolutionary ideas, to communist ideas, when those times come. So yeah, I think it's really incredible work that all of you guys have been doing. I just have a couple more questions to ask before we sum up. One question that I heard that we received quite a lot on campus, or that people were asking us whether in kind of good faith or bad faith, was this idea of, is our program realistic? And I think this is a really useful question for us to discuss, because obviously we understand that the reason that we didn't think that, 1, 2, or 3 student union presidents was going to end the crisis of capitalism, was going to end all of these cuts, was going to bring down the Starmer government, any of these kind of things, end all the ties to imperialism. We saw this as the start of a fight, right? We saw it as, if we could get you guys elected, that would be the beginning of a struggle against all of the horrors of capitalism, against the marketization of education. We saw it through this kind of lens, and we therefore think it is, an incredibly realistic program on the basis of like organizing workers and students to fight for these things for themselves, not as just like, getting into positions and giving people nice things, but actually getting workers and students to fight for their own liberation, to fight for their own rights. And I think, yeah, that was the basis of why we were running these campaigns. But yeah, maybe we could talk a little bit more about what you guys would have done if you had won. What would it have looked like if you were now all student union presidents? What would you be up to? Alice, do you want to talk first?
Yeah, I think the fundamental point is that, yeah, right now the student unions are completely apolitical at a time when the student body as a whole is incredibly politicized and incredibly angry. And we think that the student union should be like a militant fighting body for the interests of students. And if I was elected, then it would be immediately organizing students, especially in the areas that are most affected by the cuts, and giving them a program to fight on. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Anton, have you got anything to add on this?
Yeah, I guess this fight back has to be wider. It can't be isolated in one university, because this crisis is so deep. It's in every part of society. So linking with SUs across the country would be like a first step in actually transforming it. But then also linking with workers. So in Sheffield, I know that the refuse workers are on strike and have been for 30 weeks. And we should be sending students there and supporting them, because strengthening their fight strengthens our fight, because we're both fighting the same system, And this would fundamentally be something we'd have to do to actually have a way forward, is linking these wider struggles to have an actual mass, or a mobilized fight back.
Yeah, 100%. Adam, what about you? What would you be up to if you'd won?
Yeah, I think one of the things is that we've only gotten here because we have the correct ideas. Our program is really interesting. It's why do you run as communists? Well, we run on this platform. We're the only ones fighting capitalism because we're communists. We couldn't do it if we were anything else. So a really key part of that would be finding all of these thousands of youth in Britain who have been so alienated by the current climate, by the crisis of capitalism, who want to fight back, and getting them under the banner of communism, educating them, and forming that core that can really go out and act, and basically speak to people like we've been doing, right? To be able to explain those ideas in a concrete way. I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, yeah, just one thing I wanted to add to this is what we were talking about before of opening the books and these kind of questions, that any of you guys, if you had won these elections, would be starting with exposing the marketization of education, right? Exposing the where money is actually being spent in the universities, where all the resources are going. and just bringing that to light for people and showing people like that the money is there. It's just in the hands of the very rich and very powerful, and that we can only change that by ending capitalism, and therefore beginning this fight. Yeah, I think that shows exactly the kind of what we would have been doing if we were in these positions, and the fact that our program is entirely realistic. It's just very different from the kind of program that a student union bureaucrat runs on, where they say, "I'm going to give you all of these nice things," and then they come into power and then they do none of that. Right? We are running on the idea of supporting the working class and students, supporting those movements, and developing them further. Yeah, I think the last question that I want to ask you guys is, obviously we did incredibly well in these elections. As I said at the start, we came third in all three places. We had this incredible response from students, but obviously now we didn't win those elections, and we've got maybe another year to wait until the elections come about again. What are you guys going to be up to in this time? Are you just waiting for the next elections to come around to run again, or to have another RCP comrade run, or is there more that you'll be doing in the next year? Anton, what do you think?
Yeah, so obviously the fight doesn't start and end with these campaigns. It's so much bigger. And we were so loud during these campaigns. Like I think, like I said, loads of people know about the communists now. We've caught loads of people's attention, these angry people. But like the most important thing now is to like actually show that we have the right ideas, because patiently explaining and winning people over to these ideas is how we actually build this fight bigger, build the party. And like slogans and speeches are really good at attracting people, but yeah, this patiently explaining is how we do it. So straight after the elections, we had a meeting. We had Adam Booth come down to Sheffield on the crisis of capitalism and lead a meeting, and really go into deeper discussion with all these people to educate them, to show them that we not only have the way forward, like not only have the loudness and the boldness, but also have the way forward in this struggle. And so continuing these meetings, not only to show everyone, but also to educate ourselves, because I think our strength in this campaign was our understanding of the system, was the ones offering the way forward, because we knew what was going on, whereas all these other candidates knew nothing. So like continuing educating ourselves so we're stronger next year and then stronger the year afterwards is so important. And so we're continuing having these meetings to then also recruit these periphery that we've kind of gained around us and really strengthen our party. But yeah, that's our plan for the foreseeable future.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that is absolutely incredible. We're not just bold, we're not just the loudest, boldest people. We are that loud and that bold because we have a depth of ideas that we believe in really strongly. And we want to show students that over the next year. We want to show them why it is that all of you guys ran, and the real content of Marxism and of communist ideas. Alice, what would you have? What are you going to be up to in the next year?
Yeah, so I think in Cardiff it's looking like there will be series of strikes and movements and this sort of thing, especially at the start of the next academic year. So we'll be going to the pickets and essentially still putting forward our program, because it's not just a program to run in like the SU election, but like these are the ideas that will be able to get the demands and stop the job cuts. Like this is the only way forward. It's like completely opposed to kind of what the other candidates were saying, where they essentially will just discuss with management. Like we understand that the only way to actually change things is through a movement of students and workers. So that's exactly where we'll be going to put forward our program to them and like win them over to our ideas.
Fantastic. I think that's amazing, Alice. Adam, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, 400 people voted for revolutionary communism on Lancaster University campus. I guess the first task is to find them. I mean, we did our campaign with basically a core of only 8 to 10 students. Imagine if only 10% of those 400 we found, we got them into the party, we trained them, and we turned them outwards, right? We'd have 50 students on Lancaster University campus, or already basically the strongest political force on Lancaster. It's not saying much. It's a bit of a quiet place. But yeah, that would be a massive impact, right? Obviously, 50 is a far bigger force than 10, and we could have a far bigger impact in the future. But that means building right now.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. I think that's all of my questions that I wanted to ask you. But I really hope for everybody listening or watching this podcast, I really hope you've got an impression of the depth of these campaigns. You know, why we were running these campaigns. They weren't just flashy campaigns with hammers and sickles to show how, you know, great communists we are. They had a plan and they had a program, and they had the best ideas, the ideas that can actually liberate students and workers from all of the horrors and the crises of capitalism. So if you're a student or a worker on, you know, on any of these campuses or anywhere else, get in touch with us, find out more about how to get involved. And next year when we maybe run these campaigns again, like, we want you guys to be helping us do that. So yeah, thank you so much, comrades, for speaking to me today, telling me all of the lessons of this campaign. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys spending the time. And yeah, thanks so much.